For 3 years, life with Anna was everything I could have hoped for, maybe even better than that. My days were filled with the kind of legal work that forces you to swim through humanity's worst impulses. But walking through our front door and seeing her, it was like stepping into sunlight after a storm. She worked as a paralegal, sharp as they come, and burning with ambition to get into law school and carve out her own place in the world. That fire in her, I admired it deeply. We weren't just sharing rent. We were building something, laying down bricks for a future together in the old house I'd spent years renovating. It felt grounded, tangible. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was the woman I planned to marry. Still underneath it all, there was always this faint buzz, a kind of background interference, barely audible but persistent. And it had a name: Leo. Leo had been her closest friend since college. He worked in graphic design, though he fancied himself more of a tortured visionary than someone with a job. The kind of guy who treats the idea of a regular paycheck like a personal insult. Most of the time, he was barely scraping by designing kitschy menus for food trucks. According to Anna, he was her ride or die, her soulmate minus the romance, the one who'd always looked out for her. But to me, he was a parasite with a superiority complex, always hovering, always scheming to chip away at what Anna and I had. I'll give him this: he was subtle. No outright sabotage, just carefully veiled jabs dressed up as jokes, compliments laced with arsenic. His favorite topic? Her ex, Alex, the brooding musician who left her heart in pieces. If I took Anna on a luxurious getaway to Mexico, Leo would somehow twist the conversation to reminisce about the impromptu camping trip he and Anna once took. "Remember that night?" he'd say dreamily. "You can't plan memories like that. You just have to be with someone who gets your spirit." The implication was always the same. I was the dull, predictable option. He, on the other hand, represented freedom, spontaneity, the version of her life that I was dragging her away from. And Anna? She ate up every word like it was gospel. She bought into his protective act without question. Anytime I tried to bring up how off it all felt, she'd shut it down. "He's just being Leo," she'd say. "He was there for me when Alex broke me. He's looking out for me. He's family, Jack." I've got patience. Comes with the job. You don't rush in with accusations. You listen, you observe, and you wait for someone to build their own downfall. You wait for the moment they hang themselves with the rope they didn't realize they were holding. Leo finally handed me that rope a month ago. I had just won the biggest case of my career. Half a year of 18-hour days, missed weekends, and relentless stress. But we came out on top. It was a defining victory, huge for the firm and monumental for me. To celebrate, I hosted a dinner party. My closest friends were there, the ones who hadn't seen me in months because I'd been buried in work. Still trying to play the good partner, I told Anna to invite her circle too, which of course included Leo. The night was going perfectly. The house was buzzing with laughter, conversation, and the scent of the expensive wine I'd been saving for just this occasion. I felt good, relaxed even. Leo naturally was making the most of the open bar and strutting around like he owned the place. A few drinks in, and he decided it was time to take center stage. He launched into a drawn-out story about some obscure art exhibit, but it was all just a setup, a chance to pit creatives against the so-called corporate world. "Artists see things differently," he said, locking eyes with me. "Some of us chase meaning, not money. Others just play it safe." He sipped my wine like he was making a point. My friends saw through him immediately, glaring at him like they could burn holes through his skull. I just smiled, tight-lipped, refusing to let him drag me down to his level. But he wasn't done. He turned to Anna, his face shifting into a mask of faux concern. "I just want you to be happy," he said, syrupy sweet. "Jack's great. He's stable, dependable, a provider." That last word, reliable, he said like it tasted bad in his mouth. Then he looked at me, locked eyes, and smirked like he'd just won something. But let's be real. She could do a hell of a lot better. There it was. Silence dropped over the table like a curtain. You could hear the clock ticking, the scrape of a fork, the breath caught in everyone's throat. He'd finally said it. And I had my rope. My friends looked like they were holding themselves back from leaping across the table. Anna couldn't even lift her gaze. She just stared down at her plate, cheeks flushed. She wasn't angry with him. She was mortified that he'd caused a scene. That was the moment everything sharpened for me. The pieces clicked into place. The calm, composed lawyer was gone. In his place stood a man who'd just been blatantly disrespected in his own home, by someone living off his kindness. And that man had just taken control. I set my utensils down with deliberate care, folded my hands neatly in front of me, and turned my attention fully to Leo. The gracious host had vanished. In his place stood the prosecutor, stepping up to deliver the opening statement. "That's a strong opinion, Leo," I said, my voice cold and level. "I'd love to hear the logic behind it. From your point of view, what exactly does someone better for Anna look like? Be detailed. I'm asking for specifics." Leo wasn't ready for this. He'd braced himself for shouting, emotion, conflict. What he got was a precise, surgical cross-examination, and it completely derailed him. Well, I mean," he fumbled, "someone more aligned with her. A creative type. Someone who gets her, you know." "Interesting," I said with a nod. "So being a creative is the primary qualification in your mind. Noted. And I take it you're suggesting that you fit that mold?" "I think I understand her better than anyone," he said, puffing himself up with misplaced confidence. "Excellent," I replied. "So you're the benchmark. Let's go deeper into that, shall we? Let's factor in more than just vibes. Let's talk about real investment, things that actually matter." I scanned the table. As everyone here knows, Anna is in her second year at a top-tier law school. It's expensive, very expensive. I cover every cent of it. That's a serious financial commitment, yes, but more importantly, it's a commitment of belief. Belief in her and belief in our future. I turned back to Leo. "So tell me, Leo, as the self-declared ideal partner, what exactly have you contributed to her future? Besides your ongoing critiques of me?" His face drained of color. Anna looked at me alarmed. "Jack, please don't," she whispered. I raised a hand gently without breaking eye contact with Leo. "I'm not finished." I leaned in slightly. "Let's talk about her car. It's dependable. It gets her to class and back safely. I bought it for her. You have a car too, don't you? That old convertible that's in the shop every other month? In fact, Anna's had to lend you money for repairs 3 separate times just this year. And where did that money come from? Our shared household account. The same account that only I contribute to." I tilted my head. "So when you think about it, Leo, I'm not just funding Anna's future. I'm also the one keeping your little vintage toy running. Consider that a gift." One of my friends let out a sharp laugh and quickly tried to disguise it as a cough. Leo looked stunned, like he'd been slapped across the face. "And lastly," I continued, voice now quiet and cutting, "let's talk about the roof over her head. This house, I own it. I pay the mortgage. I fix what breaks. You, meanwhile, have been late on rent so often that Anna's had to cover for you. Again, using money I earned." I leaned back, surveying him like a jury would a guilty defendant. "So, if I'm hearing you correctly, your argument is this. A man who ensures she has a stable home, a safe vehicle, and a fully funded education, he's not good enough. But a man who can't support himself, drains her financially, and pays her back by sabotaging her relationship, driven by what can only be described as an obsessive, borderline creepy fixation, that's who she deserves. Would you say that's a fair and accurate summation of your position, Leo?" I sat back, The closing statement had been delivered. Silence fell over the room like a curtain. Leo looked shattered, completely dismantled. He didn't respond. He couldn't. Around the table, my friends' expressions were hard, disgusted. All eyes were on Leo now, and not a single one held sympathy. Then I looked to Anna. Her face was a whirlwind of emotions, conflicted, shocked, raw. But what surged to the surface, what pushed past the numbness and the shock, wasn't relief. It wasn't even disbelief. It was rage, blinding, searing, unfiltered rage. She sprang up from her seat, the chair screeching sharply as it scraped against the hardwood. Her entire frame trembled with fury. "I cannot believe you just did that," she spat, low and venomous. "You embarrassed him, in front of everyone." "He did that to himself," I said quietly, the exhaustion evident in my voice. "All I did was show the truth." "Say you're sorry," she snapped, eyes locked onto mine, burning with betrayal. "Apologize to him, right now, to my best friend, for humiliating him like that." Her words hit like a gavel. This was her line in the sand, her final demand. There she stood, beside the man I had just revealed to be a manipulative leech, and she was standing with him. She was defending that. She had made her decision. Whatever love I had for her didn't simply fade. It was cut down, swift and final. I looked at her then, not with anger, not with hurt, but with clarity, clean and absolute. There was no yelling, no accusations, just a soft, tired smile, a farewell in expression alone. Without another word, I rose, took my wine glass, and walked into the kitchen, leaving her behind, silent and still in the aftermath. That was the end. Judgment passed, sentence delivered. What followed unraveled quickly. Anna left with Leo that same night, trailing drama behind her like a cloak. She moved in with him, spurred by rage, shame, and whatever fantasy she needed to believe in that moment. She believed it was a power move, that she'd issued a challenge. She assumed I'd come crawling back, that I'd beg forgiveness, try to repair what she thought I had ruined. She didn't realize I had already accepted the terms of her ultimatum. I was done. For the next 2 weeks, I vanished from her world. No texts returned, no calls answered. The messages came in waves, first furious, then puzzled, then pleading. She even sent friends to try and talk me around. None of it worked. I was gone. Instead of chasing her, I focused inward. Our house, once our sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene. I spent a weekend packing up every single item she owned, each piece folded, wrapped, boxed. Not with anger, but with precision, with closure. I wasn't lashing out. I was laying a relationship to rest. By the end of it, all her things were stacked neatly in the spare room. I changed the locks, reset the security system. Then I made 2 difficult but necessary phone calls. The first was to the dean of admissions at her law school. We'd built a solid relationship over the years through my alumni involvement. I told him, calmly and professionally, that my private scholarship fund, set up specifically to cover Anna's tuition, was being discontinued, effective immediately. There had been a change in personal circumstances. The second call was to my firm's managing partner. I'd pulled strings to secure Anna a prestigious summer internship. It would have opened every door. But I explained that a personal conflict had made her placement impossible and that the offer needed to be rescinded. I didn't enjoy doing it, but I stood by it. Everything I had given was rooted in trust, in a partnership. She had shattered that foundation without hesitation. She could no longer live in the world we built. Exactly 2 weeks to the day, she came back. I watched through the security camera as she struggled with her key, trying to force it into the lock. Her confusion morphed into frustration, then into fury when she realized the key no longer worked. She rang the bell. I opened the door, leaving the chain latched. She looked worn down. The fire was gone. In its place was fatigue and desperation. Living with a broke narcissistic artist had clearly stripped away whatever illusions remained. "Jack, we need to talk," she said softly. "No, Anna," I replied, steady and cold. "We don't." "You can't just erase 3 years because of one argument," she said, her voice cracking as tears welled up. "This wasn't an argument," I said. "It was a reckoning. You were handed a clear choice between the person who stood by you and the one who tried to tear us apart, and you picked him. You looked me in the eye and demanded I apologize to him for exposing what he is. You defended him. You turned your back on me in that moment. That's not something I can move past." The anxiety in her eyes was unmistakable once it dawned on her that I wasn't backing down. "But we had everything planned," she said, her voice trembling. "Law school, the internship." "Right," I interrupted, letting the silence linger just long enough to make her uncomfortable. "Your last semester's tuition is due next week, isn't it? I assume you and Leo have figured that out, because my financial support ends here." Her expression drained of color. "What?" she breathed, barely audible. "And as for the internship at my firm," I went on without softening my tone, "that offer is no longer on the table. The company has a strict policy when it comes to conflicts of interest." She actually staggered backward, hand covering her mouth like she was physically struck. That internship had been her golden opportunity, the foundation of everything she thought her future would be. And now she was watching it crumble in real time. "You can't do this," she choked out, tears threatening to spill. "Jack, please, you can't." "It's already done," I said coldly. "Every decision has consequences. You backed me into a corner. Apologize or we're finished. I chose finished. Now you get to live with the fallout. Maybe Leo, the man who's supposedly such an upgrade, can help you come up with 50 grand for tuition and figure out how to rebuild the career you just threw away." Then I shut the door, leaving her standing there, tears streaming down her face. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel regret either. Just still. The verdict had been delivered. The consequences unfolded exactly as expected. Anna's world unraveled. She had to walk away from law school, just shy of graduation. Her dream gone. She and Leo, from what I hear, are still holed up in his cramped apartment. Friends say it's a special kind of misery. She's eaten up with bitterness over what he cost her, and he's stuck living every day with a woman who reminds him just how far short he falls. He won, in a way. But all he gained was a damaged version of her, one he's neither capable of fixing nor strong enough to leave. This wasn't about payback. I didn't do it to settle a score. I did it to reclaim my self-respect. Relationships are agreements, and she breached the most essential term: loyalty. What I did wasn't revenge, it was execution of the clause. She wanted to know what done truly meant. Now she understands. It means the money stops, the support disappears, and the one who built with you walks away, leaving you alone in the ashes of the home you helped destroy.